This tutorial is going to be on this Tuck and Travel bag. I have made one before, so this will be my second one. I did have a kit from the Quilted Cow, and I also got my pattern from the Quilted Cow. And in the kit, you have your main fabric, you have your lining or contrast fabric, and you have 2 pieces of vinyl, because this is a vinyl fronting to the pocket, and there's another pocket there that has vinyl. You have your 2 zippers, you have the D-ring, and you have some Velcro. The only thing it doesn't come with is on the back, where is it? Oh yeah, right here. 1 yard, a Pellon, a shape flex, or a lightweight fusible interfacing. I have that, and then I also have the fusible fleece, which is right over there. So I'm going to go ahead and start cutting everything out, and I think I'm going to make the large one, but it has 2 options there, but I'll make the large one. So first thing I did is I've cut out all my pieces. You just can't see them on the screen, but these are my pieces for the main body of the bag. So this is my lining, and this is my main fabric here. So what I've done first is, and I cut mine a little short, but on the wrong side of each of my fabrics, I've already adhered my shape flex to it, okay? So you can see I cut it a little short. So there's my shape flex. So I've done that to both of my main pieces that are going to make up the body of the bag. The next step is to take my main fabric, and I am going to adhere my fusible fleece to the wrong side over my shape flex there. It's going to give it extra stability there. Okay, so I'm going to go and do that. So again, there's my main fabric, which is going to be like the outside of my bag, and I've already done my shape flex, and I'm going to take my fusible fleece and adhere it over. Alright, so I have my fusible fleece lined, but now on both sides we want to round the corners. The pattern does give a template that you can buy from Creative Grids, but I don't have it, so I'm just going to do my own. So you could do this with the bowl. You could do this if you have a ruler template that is curved, you could use it. I'm just going to use this coaster that I've got. It's round on the back. There's lots of different ways. You could probably use a tool to round it, and so it's the same on every one. But I'm just going to use this, and I'm going to use one of my friction pens, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to lay, just make sure it's laying there, corner to corner. So I've lined up the edge of my coaster with this edge, and the edge of this coaster with this edge, and I'm just going to take this and I'm going to just do that, and voila, I've got a rounded corner. Now I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. Just lay it edge to edge, just like that. Alright, you can do that, and if you're worried about it, you can do it on one side, and then you can just like fold it. If you want to, you can fold it in half, just like this. Alright, if you want to, just measure it on one side, fold it in half so you see your mark. Make sure your edges are all lined up, and then you can just cut through both layers as you cut one out. So there's lots of options. So I'm going to do this. So you only round the corners on the top part, alright? The other side you should leave squared. So only round the corners on the top on both of them. Alright, so this will be the top of my bag, and this will be the top of my bag. Now, I'm going to admit that I made a mistake, and I actually ended up rounding both sides, and that was my fault. Yes, I have made this before, but it's been a long time, and I didn't look at the diagram like the like the step said. So I'm going to figure this out with rounded corners, but everything else should work it'll be interesting. But anyway, the bottom, this should be squared. So again, helpful hint, only round the one side of your fabric for each of them, okay? Just like here in your pattern, you see the top part is rounded, but the bottom is still square, so don't make my mistake. All right, let's move on. All right, so we're gonna make the back pocket. This is step 2, and I have my lining fabric for the back pocket, and I also have my main fabric for the back pocket. And notice the lining fabric is bigger than your main, which is fine. All right, so we're gonna take the lining fabric for the back pocket. I'm gonna flip that around, and then this is my shape flex, and I'm going to kind of center it. It's long enough, but it's not wide enough. I'm just gonna center it, so there's gonna be a little bit of a gap here and down this side where the shape flex isn't meeting the edge. So I'm gonna go fuse that together. All right, so now we're gonna take this. I've already fused my shape flex, and we're gonna take the other, my main for my back pocket, and I'm gonna put right sides together. And I'm gonna line up this side first. You can see it's bigger. I'm gonna line up this side first, and I'm gonna stitch it together. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and then I'll be back. All right, so now that we've sewed here, I'm gonna turn it around, and I'm gonna bring this over to that side, and it's going to create like a tube, and then I'm going to stitch those raw edges together all the way down. All right, so I turned it inside out, and here you can see my seam met, and about up here you can see where the trim has overlapped. There's the back. The back is just the lining. All right, and so I pressed it, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stitch in the ditch. And what I mean by stitch in the ditch is where my seam is, where this fabric meets this fabric. I'm just going to top stitch there in that seam line, okay? And so when you do that, you're really not supposed to see it. You'll see it on the back, but you shouldn't see it if you just go nice and easy and slow and stitch in the ditch all the way down. All right. All right, I ended up top stitching here at the top about 1/8 of an inch away. You can't see it because I have some darker thread, but if you look there, you can see where I have, no, it's really hard to see on this fabric. Well, anyway, right here is my stitch in the ditch line, and there is my top stitching from the back, and there's the front. All right, moving on. All right, so the next thing you want to do is you want to get your Velcro, and you need a piece cut to the size of your pattern that it states. And this is the soft side, and this is the hard bumpy side. So I'm going to use the soft side. And what I want to do is I'm going to use my top stitching for placement, but I want to find the middle of my pocket piece. So I just folded it in half, and I gave it a good finger press there at the top. And then I'm going to open it up, and this is going to be centered right under my top stitch, and I'm going to about find the middle and center it. Now I'm going to use this glue stick. I was sent this in my ambassador box because I just kind of want to baste this down. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue, and you can see it. It's yellow when you put it on. This is the fabric glue stick. I think it's by June Taylor. And so I'm just going to put this on just to hold it in place, and it'll go right there. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to stitch this in place. So I'm probably just going to stitch along the perimeter of the Velcro all the way around. All right, so this is the front. I'm using a lighter thread, and I could have changed it out to the darker thread, but I'm okay with the lighter thread showing through. But that's what it looks like from the front, and that's what it looks like from the back all stitched on. So now we're going to attach the other piece of Velcro. Oh, and in case you wanted more information on this glue stick, it is the Quilters Select glue stick, fabric glue stick. And again, it's this awesome yellow color, so you can see it when you put it down. And when you buy it, it does come with a little refill inside. So got mine from the Quilted Cow. It's great. Alright, so this is my main fabric, and according to the pattern, I have measured from the bottom of my bag. I have directional, so I made sure it was going the right way. Measured from the bottom of the bag up, and if you can't see it, I just made a line here, and then I folded my fabric in half here. I probably didn't need to do that, just to find the center point and intersected them there perpendicular. But here's my piece, and here's my other side. This is the loopy hard part. And I'm just going to attach it there, okay? And then I'm going to take my trusty glue stick, and I am going to put some glue on here. It's probably a lot, but not to hold. And then the bottom here of my pocket is going to be on the bottom of that line where I drew. And I'm just going to place it, and then I'm going to tack it. I don't know if you can see, tack it down there, and I'm gonna just clip that and clip that, and hopefully this holds, and it does. Look at that. There we go. Okay. Now I don't think you have to do all this, but this is the way I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna hold this, clip this, and hold it down. So you can see my Velcro is there, and now I'm just going to stitch around it all the way around the perimeter and to hold that down. Alright, so now that this is stitched down, I'm going to unclip this, and I'm going to flip that back up and make sure the Velcro is right. Yes, it is. And I'm going to make sure everything is straight. Straight here, I have that line that I drew, so it's right across the bottom. Clip it in place. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to clip these sides in place. Okay. Alright, and now what I'm going to do, let's flip this guy a little bit better. Alright, there we go. Maybe that's a better view. Alright, so now I'm going to stitch on the bottom to attach my pocket to my main piece. And then I'm going to go ahead and stitch up each side as well, about 1/8 of an inch away. Alright, and that'll attach my pocket to my main panel piece. Alright, so that is what it looks like. I stitched the sides down, and I stitched across the bottom and then up the side again, and that is what my pocket looks like. And you can take that off, and there's my pocket. Looks pretty good. Alright, now we're going to make make and attach the band, which is step number 3. Alright, these are my 2 pieces of fabric that are exactly the same that are going to make the band. So what I've done is I've taken my 1 piece of Shape Flex, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's centered, so it doesn't quite go from edge to edge or edge to edge here, but it is fused, and I'm going to take right sides and I'm going to lay them together just like that. Alright, and then I'm going to take this over to the machine, and I'm going to top stitch along the long side on both sides. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it inside out. Alright, so I turned it inside out, and I aligned my seams on both sides, gave it a really good press, and then you can see I top stitched it on the top and the bottom all the way down. And now it's time to put it on our panel here. Alright, so this is supposed to be your straight edge, but again, I made my mistake and I'm going to work with it. And I curved everywhere when I'm only supposed to curve the top of my bag, but I'm going to go with my mistake and see what I come out with. So I measured in according to the pattern from the bottom edge up, and now it looks like the band is bigger, but it's supposed to be bigger because you're supposed to move it in, alright? On each side, and I'm going to clip it here. I don't know if I can do this one-handed. Probably not. Alright, and then I'm going to come over here, and I'm also going to move it to the edge. And that's going to give some extra room here. You're going to have a little bit of, not bulk, I don't know what you call it, just a little bit of extra there in the middle. That way, if you put anything in your pocket or anything inside, this has the ability to be able to expand to meet that a little bit. Instead, if you were just to sew it straight down and you had something bulky, there's no give here in the middle. So Don't cut off that extra. Make sure you leave that extra and just align it to the edge. Clip it down on both sides. Leave that extra bit there, and then you're going to stitch these short edges down to the panel. What I mean by short edges, this side, on this side, and this side you'll stitch down. So I'm going to do that now. All right, so there is my band stitched down in place. I think I only went in about 1/8 of an inch, and you can see that I have a little bit of extra there. So we're good to go. Now we're going to move on to step 4, which is making the vinyl window pockets. All right, so we're going to work on making the vinyl window pockets, and this is my piece of vinyl, and I have 4 pieces of material cut out around this size. All right, these are not my binding strips. But anyway, what you want to do is you want to fold them in half, all right, lengthwise. So long side to long side, right sides together, and give them a press. And then what you're going to do is you're going to open that piece up, take your vinyl, and you're just going to slide it in all the way so the vinyl is meeting on the edge. So if I press right here, the vinyl is right there. So you're just going to line everything up. I'm going to put a couple clips in. All right, and I've already done my second one as well. And all you're going to do is you're going to take this to the machine, and along the folds where you put the vinyl in, you're going to sew 1/4 of an inch, and you'll do that to each side. Okay? All right, so now that it's sewed, you don't want to put heat from your iron on your vinyl because it will be disastrous. So you're going to take both pieces and you're folding them back or away after you've stitched, and you're just going to give it a really good finger press down, and I make sure that it's lined up, and I just put a couple clips in for safety. And then once I have a couple clips in, you're going to top stitch this, okay? So if you can see, I sewed away from my vinyl on the top about, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch. Mine might look a little bit wider, but I like it like that, okay? So now I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to sew from my vinyl seam in about 1/8 of an inch all the way down. All right, so now you should have 5 strips that you cut the same, and so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and for all of them, they're done the same way. So basically, I started off, and then I folded it in half to create a center line. Since mine's already ironed, it's not laying. And once I had my center line, then I took each of my long raw edges and folded it into the center, and then gave it a good press. And then I folded my long edge to long edge in half again and gave it a good press. Okay, so what this is going to do is we're going to create pocket number 1. So with this, we just open it up here. All right, it's not the same technique that we did here. We just open that up and we slide that vinyl right in. It should be nice and secure, and lining up the other edges. I'm going to use some pins to clip into place, making sure everything is nice and snug up against, the vinyl's nice and snug up against the middle there, and then we're going to sew it down. All right, so that one is clipped in place, and I'm going to flip this around. This is pocket 1 again, and I'm going to take another piece, and I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to start securing it. Got to get more clips. All right, and making sure that vinyl is nice and tucked up. Pinning in place all the way down. All right, so this is going to create the first pocket, and I'm going to go ahead and take this to the machine and stitch both of these pieces down according to the directions. So I'm in step 4, pocket number 1. All right, so here's pocket number 1. Now when I was sewing, I did not measure in from the folded side in. I measured in from the vinyl in. So when I was sewing it, I put it like this into my machine and measured from here in, because you want to sew close to the, I don't know, raw edges here. All right, so there's pocket number 1, and now we're going to assemble pocket number 2. So with pocket number 2, you're going to take one of those strips that we just used, and you're going to attach it to the top only, okay? So again, just like open it up, slide it in, I'm going to clip it, and then I'm going to sew that one down. And the bottom is going to work a little bit differently, but we'll attach this to the top of pocket number 2. All right, so for the bottom of the pocket, it's going to work like the sides here. So there was this one strip that you cut that I have left over, and I just folded it in half, right sides together, gave it a good press. And I am going to just open that up and slide my vinyl into it, and then I'm going to stitch on the bottom, and then I'm going to fold each side back, and then I'll top stitch just like I did to the sides. So first things first, I'm just going to open that up, put my vinyl in, make sure everything is aligned and my vinyl is nice and snug up against that center fold, and we'll stitch it down. Alright, so there it is stitched down, and then I just take that fabric and fold it back, and I take that fabric and fold it back. And remember, you don't want to put iron to vinyl because it will be disastrous, so I'm just going to give that a good finger press. I might line up these 2 raw edges and put some clips in there, and then I'm going to top stitch from the vinyl seam in, okay, and top stitch that down, probably about 1/8 of an inch. Alright, so there it is, all finished, and now it looks like we're moving on to getting the zippers all ready. So there's pocket number 2, and there was pocket number 1. Prepare the zipper by cutting it down to the size according to the pattern for the size that you're making. So for my zippers, I trimmed them up to size, and there's one end that has that really thick metal piece, and I cut off right at the end or right at the beginning of that metal piece, because it's really hard, it makes it really hard to sew these on if that metal piece is there. So I cut that off first, and then for the other end I just trimmed it up to where it would need to be for the length of the zipper I need according to the pattern. So for these parts, these are your like zipper pull tabs here. I just folded them wrong sides together, gave them a press, and it worked just like this part did. Okay, so I stuck my zipper tab in, I centered it, and then I sewed it down, and then I took these and I flipped them back towards each other on both sides, and then I top stitched them down. So I did that to each side, and here I moved the zipper down before I attached it, and then this can just move, you know, right back up if it needs to be. Alright, so there are my zippers prepared. I hope that makes sense. I didn't spend a lot of time showing too much about the zippers. Alright, so the next thing is to attach the zipper piece to your pockets on the top, okay? Now this was pocket number 2, so this part was the bottom. You have to remember that, okay? This is the piece where we made these and stuck it in and sewed it. Alright, so it's going to be, your zipper piece is going to be a little bit longer than your main piece, and that is okay because you can trim it after this part is done. So what I did is I just used my Quilter Select, my fabric glue stick, and I put some glue down, and it's this really bright yellow. It's like highlighter yellow, so you can like definitely see it when you put it down. But I just put some of that down, and then I set my piece and I leave it a little bit away from the zipper. You don't want it right up to the zipper because then you're going to have problems unzipping it and zipping it. And so I glued it all the way down, and now I'm going to take this over, and from my zipper in, I'm going to top stitch this all the way down. And then I'm going to trim up the side so everything is even. Okay, so working with the zipper can be a little stressful. My zipper tab is up here, but it was down here. I just pulled it down before I started sewing. And then when I got to my zipper tab, what I did was I made sure my needle was down, and then I lifted my foot up. Now, naturally it just goes that high, but if you need to, if I press on my lever up here, look, it goes even further up, okay? But you want your needle down so nothing shifts, and then you can move this, and then you can pull the zipper tab farther back, to the back, so it's not in your way. And then you just readjust and put that down, and then you just keep on sewing to the end. All right, and now what I'm doing is there's my top stitching by my zipper. Now I'm taking one of these other pieces. I had 5 of them to start with, and they're already prepared. And I am putting it above, so I'm just sliding my zipper part into the middle there, making sure it sits in there well. Well, you don't want it all the way in. You want to make sure that your fabric is a little bit away from your zipper teeth. And so I'm just going to close this to start with. And so I'm just going to kind of lay it there until I'm good. And we'll pin it, clip it, pin it, glue it, baste it, whatever you want to do. Alright, so there it is. And now I'm going to take it and I'm going to just top stitch. This part was probably really chaotic. Alright, so here's what it looks like a little bit up close. I didn't put it right to my zipper teeth because then you'll have problems opening. But yeah, now I'm just going to top stitch it. And with the top stitching, I'm not top stitching from the fold in, I'm top stitching from the zipper teeth in. All right, and again, to work with the zipper, just move it down. And then when you start sewing, when you get to it, make sure your needle's down, lift up your presser feet, and then readjust, move that zipper to the back, and then just keep on sewing. All right, there we are. It is completed. Now I'm going to follow these exact same steps to attach the other zipper to my other pocket. And here's just a picture of me trimming off that extra length on my zipper to match the length of my sides before. Here's what it looks like after I've trimmed the sides before I add the top piece to attach to my zipper to complete my pocket. Alright, so now it's time to put the pockets on the lining piece. So the curved part should be the top, and since I made a mistake and I curved everything, I'm just gonna have a curved look. So this should be the straight edge, the bottom. So this is pocket number 2, and it's attached to the bottom. Since I messed up on the curves, I just made sure the raw edge here was aligned to the raw bottom edge of my lining. And I clipped into place here, and then I measured up according to the pattern from here up, leaving that bit of space in between. Make sure if you're doing a large bag, you leave enough space for the large. If you're doing a small, leave enough space for the small. And then I placed this one, and then I clipped it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the sides, and I'm going to stitch about 1/8 of an inch in all the way down. And then I'm going to come over to this side and stitch about 1/8 of an inch down. And then I'm going to I think I'm going to do this one first. And I'm going to, because this is the pocket, you want it to be a zip pocket. So this needs to be stitched down. So then I'm going to come and I'm going to measure in from here, the top in, and stitch that down. Then I'm going to come here and measure in from here and stitch that down. Then I'm going to come down to this one, stitch that down, and then I'm going to I'm going to have to curve the edges based off the back, and then I'll stitch the bottom down as well. So that'll adhere my pockets to my lining. Okay, pockets are on. This is sewed down. This is sewed down. So now, like, this is open a little bit. So now you have your pockets here that you can get into. Right, and then this one also, I top stitched here. And I ended up cutting to match my curves, but yours should be straight because you didn't make my mistake. And then I just sewed here, and then this will get sewn when I attach this to my other piece. So now this part is optional. I'm going to do this for this one, so I'm going to go ahead and make that little tab and put it on my D-ring and then attach it to my main panel. Not this one, the other one. I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so I cut a piece of material according to the directions. Here it is. I folded it in half to begin with, found my center, opened it up, found my center, took my raw edges, folded it into the middle, gave it a good press, and then folded it in half. And now I'm just going to stitch on both sides real quick. And then we'll attach our D-ring, and then we'll attach it to our other panel. Alright, there's one side and the other side. So again, this is optional. You don't have to do this. On my first one, I didn't make that. I wish I had. I didn't do this, but I wish I had. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. I think I forgot to do it because on the pattern, it's all the way at the end, and I think I was getting to it, and then I got to the end of the pattern, and then I saw the different options, and then I was like, oh, I could have done this, but since I didn't read the pattern all the way through first, I missed that it was optional. Okay, so here it is. Hope you can see it. Top stitch on both sides. Here's the D-ring that does come with the kit. I'm just going to slide that in and then fold that in half. And now I'm going to grab my other panel, okay, which is right here. All right, and I'm going to attach it to the top. So this is the top of my main panel on the outside. I'm just going to fold it in half so I can find my center point, give it a good finger press because I want this centered. So now I'm going to take this and align it to my center. And then I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. I don't know if you can see this really well. Here it is. Okay. So I found the center. I've centered this now at the top of my bag. And I'm going to take this and I'm just going to baste it down or just kind of stitch close to the raw edges to hold that in place. And then I'm going to attach this to that panel. Alright, so just a little note, on this band here on the main we had some extra bulk, so I would probably, let's see, just either clip it or pin that extra there so it doesn't get in the way, because you don't want this side to get bunched up and you don't want it to get caught in this side. So I would just kind of bring the extra into the middle and just pin it down there. Okay, the other hint is in the pattern just to open each of these zippers a little bit, maybe towards the middle, so that way they're not close to any of the edges when you're sewing. Alright, so I'm going to pin this in place, and then I'm going to put these right sides together, making sure top is to top and bottom is to bottom. And then we'll do some stitching. Alright, so everything is clipped together. Here's those Jumbo Wonder clips that I really enjoy, and I got more of this last week. And then at the bottom here, I left an opening according to the pattern for the size I was making. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start here and I'm going to stitch all the way around till I get to my other side and make sure I back tack there and back tack here to reinforce that. And then before I turn it right side, turn it inside out, I'm going to stitch a second line in between the raw edge and my first sew line on the sides all the way down to just reinforce the sides, because when you start stuffing things in, it's going to start pulling at your stitch line, and you want that reinforced so that way if you have some bulky stuff in there and it pulls a little bit, this is not going to come apart. Okay, so again, sew all the way around, leave the opening, and then when you're done sewing all the way around, on the sides from kind of where the first pocket is, so my first pocket starts here, so maybe start a little bit above it and stitch a second line in between my first sew line and my raw edge all the way down, and then repeat that to this side to really reinforce those sides. Alright, so this is the top of my bag, and what I did is, you can see, there you can, I kind of feathered it a little bit. I just took my scissors and I did not cut into my sew line, but I did cut notches along the curve. This helps relax the fabric, especially if you turn it inside out. I did stitch my second line. I did try to notch this without getting too close, and I also notched that curve, and there's my opening. And now I'm going to turn it inside out. See what it looks like. All right, finished line is here. So it doesn't look as beautiful as it would if it was a straight edge because I didn't want to really curve. But anyway, this is where my opening was. I just tucked my fabric under. You can give it a press, but just be careful of your vinyl. And then you just top stitch at the bottom all the way down. And then you come up here and, oh, I forgot to trim that string. I'll have to do that later. And right above, this is pocket number 1. You're going to start and you're going to top stitch all the way around, and you're going to end just above pocket number 1. Okay, and then the last thing you're going to do is you're just going to see how this folds up. Okay, because you want to do a stitch line for your fold. Oh, and there's my hanger. I didn't have one before. All right, so it looks like it'll fold up there, but I'll check it anyway. So let's just say if this were my fold line, I'm going to give it a really good finger press, okay? And then I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to take my chalk pencil here, and I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm going to draw my fold line here, and then I'm going to stitch on that because that will help as I'm folding it to hold that fold line down, okay? So I'll show you when I'm done. All right, so here it is. It is all done. My D-ring just hangs down there. There is my band, and then I can untuck it, and there it is when it opens. This is my first pocket, and then I've got my second pocket. This is my sew line here that I did, and then when I fold it back up and tuck the band in, just like that, and I turn it over, I've got my pocket there on the back. So one thing that I didn't, this is the first one that I made, and I don't know if you can see it, but on this one, before I started attaching anything, I quilted it, and I don't know if you can see my decorative stitches, but I did not quilt this one. Quilting is optional, but I would have taken this panel, my main fabric here on the outside, and after I attached my, what did I attach this one? Oh, my Shape Flex and my fusible fleece. At that point, then I would have quilted it however I wanted before I started attaching the band and the pocket piece. But I chose not to quilt this one. And this one has a D-ring. This one does not have a D-ring. This one, I misread the pattern, so the band here doesn't have a little bit of extra give. But I was okay, and then I was a little confused on how to do the pocket last time. So I ended up with a different looking pocket, but my pocket is still there. I learned from that mistake. Made another mistake on this one, but totally okay. And then there is this one. I still have some stuff in it. Oh, I still have some stuff in it from last time I used it. So these are great. I use them as little toiletry bags. I had some first aid stuff down here. I had some hair stuff up here. There's my sew line for this one. So I really like these. They're pretty easy to make, and they turn out really nice, and they're great for traveling or whatever you want to use them for. So there we go. This is the Tuck and Travel bag. Enjoy!